And the situation of the Arabs is a major contributor to this fact. So now we know that the Arabs are not integrated, and they're not being more integrated. On the other hand, they are being pushed out of the mainstream of the economy. So the second question, is this by design? Did anybody make a conscious decision that they should be left out of the economy? So it is true that certain of the elements are government controlled, like the fact that no new Arab town has been built since the establishment of Israel, the lack of preferential investment status, the lower level of investment in education and infrastructure per person as opposed to the non-Arab sector, the lax enforcement of non-discrimination laws and regulations. So these were powerful factors controlled by the government, which doesn't help the integration of Arabs. And the integration of Arabs was not on the government agenda or priorities just until recently. But there were other factors operative in the Israeli economy, which also led to dire consequences to the Israeli Arabs. And those were globalization and reduction of tariffs, the growth of the high-tech sector in Israel, foreign employees in the Israeli workforce, and the changed role of government in the economy and society. Globalization and reduced tariff, as you know, in the States as well, lead to increased imports of certain products which are labor-intensive and closing down labor-intensive industries. Until the trend of globalization started in Israel around 15 years ago, Arabs were large participants in the workforce and as business owners in sectors such as the textile. These segments has totally evaporated since globalization, reduction of tariffs, and imports of cheap textile, mainly from China and other Asian countries. Now that wasn't done in design against the Arabs, but the consequence was the extremely low rate of Arab women employment we see in general and in the Galilee. A second element was that what grew in Israel was the high-tech industry, on which we Israelis are very proud. We did a magnificent job. But we have to keep in mind that the high-tech is based on a lot of contacts and background in the Israeli Defense Forces, in Special Intelligence Unit, in the defense establishment. Most of the Israeli high-tech business is still in communication and IT, which still has some relevance and bearing upon what's being done in defense institutions. It's less of internet startups and this kind of things which are disassociated from establishment. So the high-tech has grown very significantly in Israel, both in terms of employment, value creation, status creation, but the Arabs are hardly there. There are just a few hundreds of Arab working in their profession in the Israeli high-tech. The explanation is not blatant discrimination, nor that anyone made a decision that the Arab won't participate. Part of the difficulties are language, difficulty to write CV, hesitancy in job interviews. A lot of work in the high-tech sector is based on clubby relations, and you meet your friends in Israel, in the army. And the Arabs are not called up to serve in the Israeli army, so they have nothing of that network of connection, which is very strong in Israel in general, in the business community in general, but particularly in the high-tech sector. A third element is the foreign workers in the Israeli workforce. Globalization and reduction of tariff is not just an Israeli phenomenon, it happens worldwide. It is known that when it happens, low-skilled workers find refuge in what's called non-tradable sectors, such as services, construction, agriculture, where you cannot import people from far away. You cannot import the products from far away. Due to very powerful lobbies of these industries, Israel has adopted an almost unique, extreme liberal policy of importing foreign workers, and in 2006, almost 10% of Israeli workforce consisted of foreign employees, mainly from the Philippines, Thailand, and recently African refugees, many from Somalia, who are being smuggled through Sinai. Again, this policy was not designed to be anti-Arab, but those who suffer for her are the weak, and mainly the Arabs. Fourth element was the changed role of government in Israel.